Hello everybody, it's vanburman here. Welcome to the 7th annual top 5 games of the year. This year has been 2018, next year will be 2019. And as always, the full disclaimer at the start, these are only games that I personally have played this year. And there will be a few honourable mentions, but if you're worried or if you're concerned as to why, like God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2 are not on this list, it's because I've not played them this year. So I only have the PC now, so there won't be any console exclusive games on the list. And I know in previous years I did note what console I played them on. That won't be the case this year when it comes to the top 5 games. And the year started off really well, and the majority of my games are from the start of the year. So without further ado, let's begin with the top 5. So, starting off with an honourable mention, we have got Edge of Eternity. It's a new JRPG that's been released early access on Steam. Now, unfortunately, it is a little bit too early access for me to include in the top 5. It was between this and the one that is 5th in the list. But I am looking forward to seeing how it develops over the year. And it is worth going and checking out on the Steam store if you are happy giving the developers a bit of time and looking at it that way. It seems to be very reminiscent of old school Final Fantasy games. The story itself seems perhaps a little bit lightweight at this point, but it's definitely one that has potential and one that looks like it could have a lot of character going forward. So we'll have to see how this one goes and how it progresses. I've not got any footage of the second game that's an honourable mention, but I also thoroughly enjoyed Dead Cells as well this year. That was, a pretty decent game to play. One of those, what they called roguelites, where you die over, but you take some progression with you as you go through. And that was a pretty decent game that released on all the different platforms and consoles. You could just pick up, come in and out of it as and when you wanted to. So just a couple of honourable mentions there, just to touch home on. And the obvious games that were blockbusters this year: God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Fallout 76. Oh wait, no, sorry, not Fallout 76. I wish Fallout 76. Never mind, not a big deal. Number 5, we've got Thronebreaker, The Witcher Tales, made of course by CD Projekt Red, which is very nice to see them bringing some stuff out, even if it's just a sort of Gwent main story Gwent game, I suppose. But no, the story is very rich with the lore, as it is in all of Witcher games. And for those of you that are keen on the game of Gwent within the Witcher series, will absolutely love this. It's something that I got into. I did play a lot of the card games when I went a lot of the games of Gwent and collected a lot of the cards when I went through The Witcher 3, so that's always nice to see. It's got its own proper story, and it's sort of a bit about like your army is your deck of cards in some regards. So that is quite an interesting spin on things. And also they have different challenges and puzzles that are done through the card game as well, where you have to do it in a very specific way. Now, it's not overly challenging thus far. I'm only a few hours in, so that's probably why. But it's nice to have a bit of a spin on the genre. I'm always a big fan of card games, but the multiplayer ones are always plagued by microtransactions and such. And because this one is single player, and it does encourage you, to not necessarily take chances, but it encourages you to think on your feet and work out a correct scenario to get through the challenge, and it never feels as though it's unfair, which is quite nice to see. So yes, well worthy of number 5. And number 4, we've got Total War Saga, Thrones of Britannia. Now, this got a relatively mixed review this year from many reviewers, and from myself as well. I must admit, but I must confess I did struggle too much with the top 5 list. So this one's in here really by lack of anything better, unfortunately. But I thoroughly enjoyed my playthrough with the Thrones of Britannia. I've done 2 of them so far, and like I mentioned in my original review, it is progression from Creative Assembly, and it does bode, while we're on a upwards trajectory, it bodes quite well for future releases. Obviously, the one next year I'll be looking forward to will be Three Kingdoms one, that I thoroughly expect to be on the top 5 games of 2019. However, you can never legislate for that sort of stuff because you never know just how it's going to go. But no, Total War Saga, Thrones of Britannia was a relatively really nice game. Very similar, like a more polished Attila. I didn't really get any bugs either in this one, which I know some people have had issues with, but for myself, all ran very well. The campaign was really well balanced, and yeah, it was a good example of a Total War game. If you hadn't played Rome 2 or Attila and you went and straight played this, it would definitely be a good starting point for people new to the series. So yeah, I think they did a decent job overall, but not as good as the number 3 on the list, which is coming up very shortly. I'm biding time, waiting for it to happen. And number 3 is Dragon Ball FighterZ, or FighterZ, depends on how you want to play it. But no, I spent a lot of time with this game. I even went out and actually bought a fight stick to play with it. Not that I'm very good with the fight stick, of course, but no, the great thing about this particular game, or what drew me to it, are the animations and the art style. It's very true to the TV series, and it does feel like you're playing a battle in the TV series as much as it can do, and it feels like its own fighter. A lot of the times, I feel as though I can sort of pick on other newer fighting games, for copying Street Fighter or copying Tekken or whatever it may be, Soul Calibur. But this feels quite fresh, feels quite as though it, has a place where it belongs, where it fits in the fighting genre. And it is quite rare that I would even bring in a fighting genre into a fighting game into a top 5 list. It just doesn't really happen. But no, I was quite captivated by it. It does a lot of stuff really well. One of the main things I have issues with in the fighting genre is this whole idea of having you to pay for characters. As far as I'm concerned, that's part of the game. You play the game and unlock the characters. But no, they have to make money somehow, I suppose. Not that I necessarily agree with it, but there you go. So, yeah. Good fighter. I'm not very good at it online, but yeah, all the single player stuff seemed really good. Maybe a tad repetitive, but then again, that's the gameplay. So, yes, well done. Bando Namco? Namco? Bandai? That's it. Oh dear. Horrendous. That's why I don't do YouTube videos anymore. The number 2, we've got Melodic Republic. An RPG Maker game without any real gameplay. It's more of a story-based, what do they call them? Walking simulators, I suppose. You go through and you interact and discover the story. And it's got lots of nice little niches in it and callbacks to previous RPGs. And one of the main things with it is that you can tell that it's been, lovingly crafted and made. From really top to bottom. I suppose for me on a personal level, because I'm very au fait with the engine that was used and everything else, it's nice to see it done really well, and I was very impressed with it from a technical standpoint as well. Everything was done not necessarily to perfection, but I think it is about as good as you can expect. It's a bit of a shame there wasn't any gameplay, but it's been the best example of this type of game for a good while, and it is one that I'd recommend going and checking out if you really are into story-driven experiences. An honourable mention, another one, would be to Void Monsters that I played as well this year, which you can find on the channel in one of the playlists, and that was another good example of an RPG Maker game done well. But this one is my top pick, and to be fair, in another world, it could have been number 1. I think it's really the lack of gameplay that means that it has to give way. And I don't think there'll be any surprise in what game I've picked for number 1, coming up very shortly. And here it is, Kingdom Come Deliverance, the top game of 2018 for me. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Didn't know whether it would be that good or not to begin with. There's a lot of mixed reviews coming out about it from the alpha, but everything is lovely. It's probably one of the most realistic modern medieval games you can play in terms of its sword combat. It's obviously not the most fluid, and it did have some performance issues when it began, but in terms of the story and everything else, I thoroughly enjoyed playing it. It was a really great experience. It gave you one of those feelings as though I don't know, I suppose when you played Oblivion for the first time. It feels as though stuff within the universe matters. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I could wax lyrical about it all day, but the fact of the matter is, it was the game I enjoyed the most this year. Probably one of the games I played the most as well, in terms of single player experiences. And yeah, I'd recommend going and checking it out in 2019 if you haven't already, if it goes on sale or whatnot. There's been a lot of updates and such since I last played it, so I don't know what the game's current state is like. But from my experience, month after it initially came out, was that I knew it was going to be difficult to top this year. And I think that's been, the most prevailing factor for me this year is that there's not been that much great come out in the back end of the year. You've got Edge of Eternity, and you've also got the CD Projekt Red game as well that came out in December. But yeah, aside from that, been a bit of slim pickings. Looking forward to next year. Rage 2, Three Kingdoms should see some good releases, hopefully. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed it, and let me know what you think. See you next time. Bye for now.